In this lesson, we're going to talk about the main differences between action editing and other forms of editing, as well as some things to keep in mind when you're just getting started and setting up your project. Now, the whole point of this course is to really talk about action editing from a technical standpoint, not necessarily from a how to use Premiere standpoint. I'm going to go ahead and assume that you already know the basics of Premiere, so when I'm actually doing functions, I'm probably going to rush through them a little bit. So if you are not well versed in Premiere already, might I recommend going back and watching another intro to Premiere first, because this is all about technique. Now, the first thing that I'm going to talk about is organization. Generally, if you've watched any of my other courses, you know that I usually do an entire lesson on organization because it is that vitally important. But today we're not working with that many different types of footage, so we can keep it pretty simple. First things first, whenever you're starting a project, you need to make a folder for that project. In this case, I have it on my desktop. You can also have it on a hard drive, a portable hard drive, anything like that. And as always, when you're working with digital footage especially, you want to make sure that your project files and your footage are all in multiple places. You don't want to just put all your eggs in one basket, because then what happens if that folder gets corrupted, if the computer crashes, or something else tragic like that. And it's happened to pretty much every single editor I know. I've had more than one drive fail me over the course of a project, and if I didn't have backups of that drive, then I would have pretty much been out of luck, because once it's gone, it's pretty much gone. So always make a folder, put all of your footage and everything in that folder, and under the footage here, I also have two different folders here. So basically, a good editor's organization is folders within folders within folders. You don't have a bunch of things just floating around in the ether. You want to be able to know exactly where everything is. So in this case, I have B-roll, and multiple times I would actually have subfolders under the B-roll, but this is all from one location in one day. So in this case, I just have a bunch of shots under the B-roll, and under fight scene, I just have the same thing, a bunch of MP4s of this ridiculous fight scene that I've got on this computer that we can use to really talk about the basic concepts of editing action. So again, just make sure that no matter what, you are organized. An editor is nothing if they're not organized. So figure out the system of organization that works for you, and then just follow it. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is start a new project in Premiere. So when you open up Premiere for the first time here, you're going to have all these other things that you may have been working on before. It makes it a lot easier if you're picking up where you left off. Or you can start a new project. Click on the new project. This is vitally important. Just like you keep all of your footage and everything in one folder, you want to make sure that all your other project elements, renders, everything like that, these are all going to be set to same as project. Here you can see scratch disks, captured audio, video previews, all this stuff. And so I'm going to click on the browse. In this case, I'm going to go back to my desktop and my action editing and my projects folder. I'm going to press choose, and then you also want to give your project a name. Action editing, very original name. Okay, press OK. It'll bring up the project itself. You can always rearrange stuff however you want. You have all these different windows open, and basically the next step is to import your media. So you can just double click on import media. You could also go to file, import, or you could do Command I on a Mac or Control I on a PC. Now I should say at this point that I am Mac based, so most of the time I'm going to say Command. But just know that if you're on a PC, when I say command, it's probably control. So we go to our footage here, and we can just click the individual footage folder, and it'll bring everything in, or we can click on just one of these. There's no point in highlighting all these, because if you click on the folder, it will maintain that folder structure. So let's just go ahead and click on one of these. We'll import. It'll take a few seconds. And now we are ready. You can see that it maintained my little folder structure within there. So this is a really easy way to make sure that the folder structure you use in the original file folder matches the folder structure that you're using here. And that way, if you need to find footage, you know where it is. Sometimes it gets a little complicated because you add additional folders in here, but in that case, you can just double click on the footage and import directly into that folder. Or you can import in here and then drag in. Just make sure that whatever your level of organization is, you always follow it. Okay, so first step when thinking about editing action is to take a look at the footage. We'll talk about this documentary footage instead of the fight footage to begin with, because there's a lot more that you have to go through and actually figure out with this footage. First thing you might want to do is open it up and change your view to an icon view. This is an easy way to kind of scrub through and get an idea of what your shooter shot, what angles they have, what coverage they have, making sure that you have enough to put together here. Because most of the time when you're cutting together an action scene, whether it's like a marketing piece such as this one, this was a promotion for an upcoming fight, or if it's a skateboarding video, a snowboarding video, any of those kind of action-based edits, you're going to have to deal with the footage that you've got, because chances are you're not going to go out and get it again. Especially in a documentary world, this has already happened. We're not going to recreate it. So what you're looking for in your footage is you want to make sure that you have a variety of different shots. You can see here we have a whole bunch of different long shots. We have some close-ups of different angles. We have different angles from left to right. We have a few low-angle shots. We don't really have any high-angle shots. But you can just get a visual sense here of what we have to work with. And the nice part in this view is you can always just kind of pause over a clip and move left and right to even preview it a little bit more, because your first step is going to be to go through all of these footage, all of these shots, and drop them down into a string out using the shots that you want. And what you're looking for in these shots is basically the way to put together a story. How are you going to open it? How are you going to close it? What's going to happen in the middle? What's the pacing? Before you can actually even start editing, especially if you're working with somebody else, if you're the editor and there's another director who is going to be telling you what's going on, the first thing you should request to do is to get the footage for a day or two before you actually sit down for the first time, because that way you can familiarize yourself with all the footage. You can actually go through all of these and cut out the pieces that you really like and drop them down onto a little string out, so that when your editing partner, or the director, or whoever you need to talk to about the edit comes in, then you are well prepared to actually talk about the footage. Instead of just kind of talking in general terms, you're actually talking about things that you're familiar with, things that you already know. And that's a good practice just to get in the habit of always making sure that you know what footage you've got, kind of what order you're thinking about putting it in, and what the possibilities are before you meet with somebody. It's just professionalism as an editor. Okay, so set up your project, import everything in there, make sure that's all ready to go, and then when you're ready, come on back and we'll actually dive into editing.